we have an immigrant here today, a young woman who came from Russia when she was 20 years old. We hear a lot about immigrants in the press. And this young woman came, got her bachelor's degree at Queens, got her PhD at Queens in physical therapy. And then she married, started a family. She worked at the Board of Education with children, she calls it pediatric population, children with various disabilities and impairments. And that has stuck with her. She came out to the suburbs and she's running a place called Central Therapy. Is that a mile from here? Maybe a mile from here, maybe not, It's around the corner, basically. And she has a thriving physical therapy service, but it requires money or a prescription or health insurance. And she's noticed over the years running this very successful practice, of which I'm a very happy customer, and so is my lady. That many people, especially many children, don't get a chance to have this physical therapy, and they need it because things happen to kids. They break things and they do all kinds of things. And in addition to the emergency care in the hospital, they need this physical therapy. Now, she has an approach for that for kids that can't afford it. Her name is Irina Marcoff. Kate, stand up. She and her daughter, Kate, are here. And her friend and helper, Alana. Irina, please come.
Good morning, everybody. If you hear my very strong Russian accent, it's because I'm getting nervous. So before I get to why I came here, I have to tell you, and you all know this, because lately we hear a lot on the news how horrible this country is. And it's not true. This is the most amazing country in the world. And when people tell me this country is bad, all I have to tell them, show me a better country. Show me a country where everybody wants to come in and be part of it. There's no other country but United States where everybody wants to immigrate and be a part of this country. And I believe that partially why this country is great, it's because of people like you. You were building this country that we all wanted to be a part of. And we, immigrating from Soviet Union, want to be part of this country and continue building it the same way that other younger people want to come in and become a part of it as well. So thank you for building this beautiful country and continue doing it. Like Peter said, I'm a physical therapist, and we have a small practice on Central Avenue. It's called Central Physical Therapy. We see there adults. My practice in physical therapy started in 2004 when I graduated. I was working in New York City in a very thriving practice and worked for Department of Education as well with children. When I moved to New Jersey 10 years ago, I thought I'm done with pediatrics. I thought only New York has issues where children don't have access to physical therapy. But in New Jersey, as I was practicing, I saw this problem even more. And I had more kids coming to our clinic, which is not designed for children, asking me to see them because they can't find the clinic, they can't afford the clinic. And I was thinking, how can I create a clinic that actually can sustain itself? And watching a documentary about 3 years ago about nonprofit organizations, it dawned on me that it can be a nonprofit. Through nonprofit, we can actually create a clinic that can sustain itself through grants and people's donations. And that's how we started all this process. Believe it or not, it took a year from IRS to get a nonprofit status. I had a pile like this every month they asked me for a different form, which pretty much had the same meaning or content. So a year later, they finally gave us a status, and last December, we started putting things together. So this January, which also took a lot, we signed the lease for a clinic in Elizabeth, which is under construction right now, and in May, it's gonna open its doors to children. So I have the PowerPoint presentation. So the name for this nonprofit that we came up with was TheraYouth. The reason I didn't want to call it kids, because we want to see children of all ages, not just, and 15-year-olds don't like to be called kids. Even 10-year-olds don't like to be called kids these days. So again, this is where I went to School of Health Science in Torrance, New York, graduated in 2004 with doctoral degree, worked in Department of Education until I pretty much moved to New Jersey, and opened a practice in 2016 in New Providence. I love this neighborhood. I told my husband, if we can't live in New Providence, I'm going to work in there. Okay, that's the information for the clinic. Okay, so the mission of TheraYouth, we want to have a clinic for physical occupational speech therapy for children starting from birth to 21. 21 is considered child in United States. So until they grow up in underserved communities, in lower income neighborhoods, lower middle income neighborhoods. The reason why we started it, and all of this information that you see, I had to do research for IRS and prove it, why we have to be nonprofit. So when we did the research, we learned that in New Jersey, 9 out of 10 clinics do not take any insurance. So it's pretty much out of pocket pay. If you have Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, forget about Medicaid. Medicaid, nobody even talks about it. They do not take the insurance. And the session for child's therapy session varies from $120 to $250 per session. And if a child needs it 2-3 times a week, do the math, how much money it is. So 95 pediatric clinics are located in higher income neighborhoods. So upper middle, upper class neighborhoods like Summit, Short Hills, Chatham. Going further to Union, Elizabeth, Newark, even South Orange, there are no clinics like this. So early intervention exists, and it's paid by state money for lower income neighborhoods, but it's only until age of 3. So once child becomes 3 years old, you're on your own. And if you're born with pre-existing condition, you can get a therapy through school, but guess what? In school, it's very limited. And if you're off at summer, you don't get therapy. If school doesn't have a therapist, you don't get therapy. So you kind of left on your own. So most pediatric clinics also focus on kids with severe disabilities. Children who have mild issues like scoliosis or fractures, sports injuries, they're left out. So unless you're in a wheelchair, you're not worth paying attention, which in my understanding is wrong, because those children have to grow up healthy in order to thrive through the life. And I believe that you can have a happy child if the child is in pain. The same like any happy person. If you're in pain, you can't enjoy life. So insurances. Medicaid pays on average $20, $30 per session. And if you consider therapist salary is $90,000 a year, you can't even pay a quarter of the salary through Medicaid. And that's the reason why there are no clinics that accept Medicaid. Private insurances pay $59. That's included with copayment. And if your deductible is $5,000, it takes you a year to cover it. That's why clinics don't take it. Because they need to pay rent, they need to pay salaries. It's not because they're evil, it's just simply because they can't sustain themselves through that kind of reimbursement. That's why, again, I came up with the nonprofit solution. So again, the services that we're looking to provide: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech. And it's not on the slide, but in the future, when we're going to be able to afford, I want to bring counseling as well, because lower neighborhood families, a lot of kids come from broken families. And I believe that in order to help them in a bigger sense, they need as well psychological help, counseling, to teach, to help those children understand this is not how you should be living, that there is a better way to do in life. Okay, one more time. Who we're going to serve? Kids of all ages, from birth until they grow up, regardless of medical conditions, how mild or severe it is. And it's not going to cost families the frustrating bills they're not going to get and be in shock that they own somebody $2,000 to $3,000 for a few months of treatment. And other benefits that we're looking eventually as we grow bigger to create, it brings the jobs to those neighborhoods. Also, we want, when we go big, provide scholarships for children and for young people who will enter therapy schools and don't have parents who can pay for it. So basically creating scholarship for minority students or from lower income family students. Also providing volunteers, internship opportunities. And we really want to create workshops eventually for the young local population to teach them about health, about proper eating habits, which we'll know, like diabetes, it's a big part of physical therapy because eating habits are not very good or not a part of education. And working in lower income neighborhoods and schools, I learned though, those kids pretty much don't understand why I have to eat broccoli. Simple question like that. So last thing, which I already mentioned, how anybody can help for TheraYouth to launch and become bigger is through donation. And in New Jersey, through our research, are 35 low-income neighborhoods. I honestly, when I started research, I thought maybe like 10. 35 is a huge number for a state like New Jersey. So we will take any form of insurance, Medicaid, whatever people have. We will not turn anybody away. But the margin between reimbursement and the expense has to come from grants, donations, from pretty much any help we can get, because the cost is high. This is where we're going to have our first office, 65 Jefferson Avenue. Right now, the landlord is making a beautiful job. The building was run down, old. He's made it look so beautiful. He installed new elevators. He installed new AC. And hopefully by May, the clinic is going to be up and running. Oops. So this is the bar. If anybody wants to learn more and donate, and there's a website also. We also gave out the brochure that has information. You're welcome to look at the website.
Somebody comes to the States, has success, starts a family, gives back. Don't you love it? Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I understand that the law in New Jersey changed in 2014 that allows a patient to go to physical therapy without a doctor's prescription. Can you tell us how that works?
Absolutely. So it depends on the insurance. So pretty much New Jersey made a law leaving it up to insurance. With Medicare, you have to have a prescription. No matter what they tell you, you have to have a prescription. Not only prescription, we have to send the report to doctor and doctor has to sign it back. Without that, the reimbursement from Medicare can be withdrawn from practitioner at any time. Private insurances, Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Aetna. You don't have to have a prescription, but guess what? If they audit you and you don't have a prescription, they take money back. So we do ask for a prescription because we want to protect ourselves. Because we don't want to be a year later taking whatever money they pay to us back. With Medicaid, you have to have a prescription because you have to get an authorization, which means Medicaid has to, we send to Medicaid our evaluation and they decide how many visits to give you. So 10 visits or 5 visits they give you. They never give more than 10 visits, no matter how bad the problem is. And after 10 visits, you send them another 5-page report and you have to attach the prescription because that gives you higher chances to get more visits. So even though New Jersey changed that, the insurance makes it practically impossible to have therapy without prescription from a doctor. Did it help?
Pretty high tech. Welcome to New Providence, first of all. My question is on staffing. I assume you have one office now, which is staffed. You're opening a second one. How do you plan to? Will you be open 5 days a week in both places? Or?
No.
How many days will you be open? The new office.
Oh, the new office, it has to be open at least 5 days a week.
So you'll be adding staff then, I assume, if you're going to operate both offices at the same time.
So no, the staff that I have in central physical therapy, except me, nobody treats children there. We currently see 4 to 5 pro bono children, which we can treat more because we still need to sustain the clinic. So I'm the only one who treats pro bono children in the clinic. Everybody else has to get their salary. If I don't get my salary because it's my clinic, it's not a big deal. But if I don't pay somebody who is on payroll, you imagine what's going to happen. So the staff that's going to be hired in a new clinic, it's a pediatric specialty. So it's a therapist who know how to work with children. A lot of echo makes it difficult for me.
Is the Elizabeth Clinic a separate business from the New Providence Clinic?
Yes, that's a totally separate entity. The New Providence is it's an LLC. A small business. TheraYouth is a nonprofit foundation. It's absolutely, except me being involved in both places, it has nothing to do one place with another.
What's the most common issue with young people? Occupational speech therapy? Is there a trend or what's
That's
the
a very good
numbers?
question. That's a
Okay.
very good question because in the past, especially 3 years, I'll tell you, speech is a big issue. Young kids have speech defects because of the masks, especially the ones who were born 3 years ago. Children learn through facial expressions. So when they couldn't see their parents, their teachers' faces, they develop speech defects because they don't know how to move their lips, how to move their tongue. Children's speech level is behind in the past 3 years, especially kids that's under 5. For that reason, a lot of parents complain about that. And I understand why my kid can't pronounce the word certain way when I had no problems. The cousins who are 13 have no problems. They can't understand how much this had an impact on kids' development, because it's not just the mouth, it's a process to brain. And that part of the brain does not develop all the way at such an important age. With kids, not just kids up to 5, with occupational therapy, there's a problem because everything is keyboard, everything is phone. So who knows what distinguish our hand from monkey's hand? The thumb, exactly. Monkeys do this. We do this. So with phone, we're doing this. With phone, it's this. So the opposition, which is important for development as an older person, gripping things, holding a pen, which they don't do it as much now, affects their function, future, like tying shoelaces, buttons, zips, simple things that never occurred to us that could be a problem for young kids. In terms of physical therapy, kids' postures, you could see those postures in people over 80, 20 years ago, and probably not every year. Now it's kids, which creates headaches. So many kids have headaches. How many of you as a child had a headache? You don't remember that. Yeah, here's a child has a headache, you see? We didn't have such a thing, yes, as a headache. We didn't have such a thing like my back hurts at age of 15. 15-year-olds come with severe back pains because they're not outside playing. There's no such a thing like playing outside anymore. We put our kids into sports, competitive sports, because we want them to move, but competitive sports cause repetitive injuries. It's not like playing outside like we were playing outside, like you were playing outside. You get tired, you sit down, you run again. In competitive sports, you don't have that. You keep going, going. So there are issues that we would never think as kids having. Now they have it. And it's scary because you think, my God, if they're not even 20 have this problem, what's going to be for them when they're 60? And we try to prevent that now by creating TheraYouth.
Yes, thank you very much. I like what you're doing. A comment, I think the idea of adding counseling is really important because a lower income families, often the parents, they're working, they don't have the time to have an outside mentor to help kids through tough times is really great.
Are there grant programs and programs like that where the government will provide funding for this kind of work?
So they are, but you have to be up and running for at least 2 years. So when you start things, the government doesn't want to look into you. They want to see if you survive or not. And after 2 years, when you prove them, then you're up and running, then they consider give you grants. So with the insurances, I hope I was able to answer, but this is very broad, very sensitive, and very difficult question to answer.
Thank you for your candor.
Didn't hear you say anything about autism, which has become quite common. And I have a handicapped son, he's autistic, and he's in a group home at the moment, but I'd like to just hear your comments on autism.
So autism it's a big part because more and more children unfortunately diagnosed with that. And that is also a problem with the art therapy clinics that see severely involved autistic kids. But if the kids highly function autistic, it's hard to find for them clinic that they can afford. And that's also, like I mentioned, we are designing this clinic that it doesn't matter what diagnosis. The children will get as many services as they need to be better. So.
Yeah, Irina, very interesting presentation, but you really said something that brought a big question to my mind. If you have to be on in business for 2 years before you can get government funding, how are you funding the operation for these 2 years? Do you have arrangements with some foundations or other source of funding?
So when we started this, I actually needed money on lawyers, on representatives, and I'll be honest with you, I was funding myself. I have to say, God bless my husband. He supports me with any crazy idea I come up. So everything was coming out of our own pocket. When we got the permission with IRS, I didn't need lawyers anymore. I had to pay to grant writers, and they're expensive. So I must say a big group of my patients supported me in this. One of the persons who told me, go ahead, Susan Watts, she's an notary person. Thanks to her, we were able, to her donation, we were able to do the video, the website, and other small things like brochures. So people were telling me, go ahead, we'll be behind you. And that gave me more motivation to do it. So besides my own findings, I had people who were supporting me in this and donating. Signing for the lease, my landlord, current landlord, he said, do it. I'm going to do pro bono for you. So he did pro bono lease signing, which would cost me probably with a regular lawyer up to $5,000. So he was amazing. He said, I know you as a tenant, I'll do it for you. He's a real estate attorney. And the most amazing thing, last week I applied with a Burke Foundation, which gives seed money. They give $10,000 for equipment. So we actually won and we were approved by Burke Foundation, and they have a list of equipment that we need for the clinic that they're going to be funding. So we're not alone. There are many people who help. And we're planning to have, we didn't have information. It's coming out in 2 days. That's why we ask for emails. May 13th, there's going to be a fundraising concert in Wayne YMCA Theater, Real Diamond tribute to Neil Diamond. So if you get an email from us about that and you buy tickets and people that will buy tickets, it will help us to raise money for initial salaries for professionals who are going to work in a clinic.
Are you aware of St. Joseph's Social Service Center in Elizabeth? They're in fact just down the street from you. And I think it could be a great relationship because they serve a lot of families and have many children in the situations you're speaking about. And I think it would be a fantastic relationship for you to build. If you wish, I'll give Bernadette your brochure when I see her on Thursday.
That's funny that you mentioned that, but I've been in touch with Mary Beth throughout the year. And actually I'm meeting with her this Friday. We met with her at the, one of my associates met with her at the gala in Elizabeth last year in November. And I'm meeting with her this Friday because she feels, and I feel we're going to be really good and collaborating and partnering. Yeah, thank you. That's really amazing that you mentioned that. Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh.
Hi, yes. This is a wonderful project that you're doing, and we're so delighted to hear about it. I'm thinking about what this clinic for kids in Elizabeth is going to look like. Could you tell us how many kids you'll be able to serve? And also, you're talking about the equipment. Is the equipment for kids different from the equipment for adults? And well, actually, I have another question after that. Go ahead.
Yes, the equipment is totally different. The approach is totally different. So let me put it this way first. So my clinic runs differently than most physical therapy clinics. Peter can vouch for that. Yeah. So we treat people in private rooms. So people are not on tables with everybody else. So we very based on manual therapy. And probably that's why we can help in situations where most clinics can't help. So I believe that exercises are important to learn by using your own body, not equipment. So in children's case, the body is not growing yet. The memory of movement is not there yet. So you have to use equipment, certain equipment to teach the body to move. So, and equipment is different than for adults. Also with children, and then not a lot of places, you have to be therapist on child one-on-one. And the session can be from 30 minutes to an hour. Whereas with adult, it's different. So you have to be one-on-one. You can't outsource the child to physical therapy assistant. It just doesn't work. It doesn't give you the same result. So it has to be a physical therapist. That's why it's more expensive and harder to sustain financially.
Mhm.
So how many kids we're planning to see? We're planning to see 14 to 15 children per therapist per day.
Mhm.
So if the
that-
child is 2 or 3 times a week,
Right.
it's on average
Well,
about
them-
60, 70 sessions per week per therapist.
Right. Well, I have another question unless somebody else does. Any hands raised? No? Okay, I was interested when you were doing all that research for the IRS. I guess, well, did you discover that there were other clinics like this in other places in the country, or did you come up with a completely new idea and maybe this will be the example that others will follow?
So before an attorney could apply with IRS, he had to make sure there's nothing like this exists. He said, because if there is something like this already exists, we're going to be turned down.
Huh,
So
Wow.
the attorney was doing the research beyond of what we did in New Jersey. He had to do research, not just in New Jersey, he had to do it throughout the United States, because he said the IRS looks on a federal level, not on a state level.
Yeah.
And he was actually surprised that he didn't find anything like this throughout the United States. And he told me we have a good shot, we should apply. That's when we applied. And then IRS asked us again for the same research, the same information.
That's remarkable. Wow. Such a good thing you're doing. How innovative.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
There are no more questions. If there are no more questions, we have something to give you. This is an old guard certificate. It features an orchid. And I don't know if you know about this, but Summit was the orchid capital of the world when we were founded in 1930. Not now. I think it's well, I don't know what capital it is, but there's a lot of good coffee to be had in Summit at any rate. This is our way of thanking you. And in addition, because we were the orchid capital of the world, we'd like to show a little physical appreciation,
Thank you so much.
tangible appreciation. And one more thing, there's something called an old guard salute.
Very touched.
Thank you very much, Irina.
Thank you so much.
Okay.